This right now, what you are witnessing, which is Wendy Adelson on direct examination from Georgia Kappelman, is classic Georgia Kappelman, just dismantling a witness piece by piece, fact by fact, question by question, and using tabs, which are in a notebook, to refer her back to information that she seems to have forgotten. She keeps saying, I can't quite remember. Georgia pulling out the reliable tab to bring up said forgotten information. And right now, it is basically carnage from Georgia Kappelman as it pertains to the direct examination of Wendy Adelson.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? We are live in Tallahassee, Courtroom 3G, just behind me here at the Leon County Courthouse. This is your Lunch Live updating you on day 2 of testimony in the trial of Donna Sue Adelson versus the state of Florida. Just a quick note, one of the things I love about being on scene, I just had a gentleman come up and ask me to sign the book. And who is it? It is Harold Anything But Dull, who is always in the chat for this story. I found out he is a paralegal for 20 plus years. Just ran a marathon in Iowa, and he's got a bunch of years on me, and the guy's in phenomenal shape and an interesting character. So it is amazing to meet the different people here. So this morning, just to get you caught up on this Lunch Live, started off with Judge Stephen Everett hearing some motions again pertaining to some emails that Donna was sending around. And then we had witness number 1 of the day. Some people suspected it was going to be just Wendy as the first witness, but in fact, we had the chief investigator for the state attorney's office, and that, of course, is Jason Nulan. He was up there with demonstratives. Georgia Kappelman says, what is this? It's basically a folder. He says it is the entire divorce filing between Dan and Wendy Markel at the time, of course. And it is a hefty file, a hefty folder. And you start to see him read and bring out emails from daily planners. And a lot of these emails predominantly were from Donna. And they're, disturbing a bit in their nature because of the overbearingness of it all and the absolute control that Donna exhibits in a lot of these emails. As I just lost my handy tripod here, so I'm going to hold on to that with one hand as we engage in Fisher-Price antics here yet again at Surviving the Survivor. But I have to say this, the jurors came in today, it was a totally different feel. They seemed refreshed. It's hard to explain. Last week seems like got off to kind of a tough start for everyone. It was long, it was drawn out. Today, everyone came in from Judge Everett to the attorneys on both sides to the jurors. When they entered the courtroom, they seemed refreshed and ready to go. Wendy Adelson, we'll get to in a moment. She came in. I would not describe her as necessarily refreshed, but she was also, she had her game face on for what she needed to do until Georgia got a hold of her, and then things started to break down for her. But again, first witness on the stand was Jason Nulan, who is the chief investigator for the state attorney's office, and he's asked just a series of questions by Georgia Kappelman, and goes on to say that from the emails alone that were going back and forth between Donna and Wendy, he created a whole separate exhibit known as Exhibit 60. That's after he talked about that, this whole new exhibit, you could see the jurors kind of eyes and ears perking up because they realized the magnitude, I guess, and the tension that surrounded this particular marriage. Jason Nulan testified to the fact that Donna Adelson wanted emails and documentation related to the divorce filings. Now, Georgia made it clear that Wendy had her own divorce attorney, but Donna Adelson was sort of acting like a de facto paralegal. Donna, through Wendy, was asking for various motions and transcripts related to the divorce. And obviously, this goes to show what a meddling mother and grandmother she was and what a control freak she is. And Georgia just, going over this over and over again. Now, there was an amended petition of dissolution of the marriage and a request to move the children to Coral Springs. It was a petition, in other words, for relocation. Donna states that she was working on a relocation response on behalf of Wendy. So, listen, I've heard this from a lot of people. Thankfully, I'm not in that situation. But people who are going through divorces, they say family court is more difficult and dangerous than criminal court, and a lot of times the in-laws get involved. But in this particular case, it seemed to be involvement of a different level. So again, Donna working on relocation of responses on behalf of Wendy. Georgia then pulls up a line from the email that says that Gibbers, which is a pejorative name that they used for Danny Markel, made divorce his quote unquote full-time job to get what he has always gotten his way. That is a line from Donna Adelson, that Gibbers may divorce his full-time job to get what he has always gotten, which is his way. The irony of this is it appears that Donna Adelson has always done what she has wanted to do to get her way, even if that means the murder of Professor Dan Markel. Now, obviously, this is why we're having a trial. Donna Adelson, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But right now, Georgia Kappelman, I believe, is well on her way to proving exactly that. Georgia then, from Jason Nulan, starts asking some of the words that they use to describe Dan Markel, and among them, idiot, narcissist, religious zealot, indoctrinating them is a phrase that they used. Bastard is another one. I happen to notice that Harvey, as apparently reported and suggested by John Lauro, he was taking notes, and literally, I think he was just kind of scribbling on a pad because he's had like I don't know, a grump face going on since he's been in here, and it was suggested to him that he keep himself occupied. So he was literally doodling, from what I could tell, on a notepad. At one point, realizing that they would not be allowed to relocate, you hear Donna Adelson through Jason Nulan saying, "I am beyond angry." And she says to her daughter, at that point, Wendy Adelson, "Never, never, never give up." Three nevers: never, never, never give up. And we go back to Gibbers. And now Jason Nulan is relaying messages in these email exchanges between she and Wendy, saying that my children are going to fit into this Bible Belt. So now she's got it in her head, okay, I'm going to have my kids stray away from their Judaism because Dan Markel was becoming more religious, and to spite Dan, I'm going to have them sort of assimilate into what she describes as the Bible Belt in Tallahassee, which was offensive, of course, to a lot of these jurors who are native Tallahasseans, I believe. She said that she was going to tutor these, that she was going to have a tutor who is a Catholic church member, tutor the children who are Jewish. Both sides of this family are Jewish, but basically recruit a church tutor to teach them about the ways of Jesus Christ. And you could see the jurors, who are obviously predominantly not Jewish, looking at this like, who is this woman? This is a crazy approach to this. She says, Donna, to Wendy via emails, that your children will be baptized in a Catholic church. Just want to stop there for a minute. As you guys know, my mother is a child Holocaust survivor. She was baptized. She was sent into a Catholic school to hide from the Nazis. And this is incredibly offensive, not just to Jewish people, not just to me as the son of a child Holocaust survivor, but also, I think, to these jurors who realize how incredibly depraved and demented it is for your Jewish grandmother of your children to now be seeking out a baptism for her own Jewish grandchildren just to get under the skin of a son-in-law who she couldn't stand. And this was very effective in terms of the jurors and building their animus against Donna Adelson. She says something to the effect of, I've already checked it out and a baptism can be arranged in 2 weeks. So Donna Adelson was already in full-fledged baptism mode. And she went on to tell Wendy, and I quote here, "You cannot tell anyone that this is an act." And this is a famous line that we've heard before. She famously says to her daughter, "Put on the performance of your life. Put on the performance of your life." So this is Jason Nulan on the stand, and then Josh Zellman. And by the way, the acoustics in the courtroom are tough. It's tough to hear exactly what's going on. The mic levels and speakers are low inside of there. But Josh Zellman gets up on cross, and the only thing he has to offer is a question to Jason Nulan. Does it say Donna at the end of the emails? Or is it an email from Harvey and Donna? I looked over at Harvey at that point, who I don't know how else to say this, appears to be kind of clueless. And he was just kind of angry looking and grimacing. But Harvey just sat there and I guess kind of took it on the chin. And I said to myself, I have a note here, just throwing Harvey under the bus completely. These jurors are far from stupid, and they know that these are coming from Donna, and it's a desperate attempt by the defense to muddy the waters that I don't think are being muddied at all, because they know exactly what's going on. So then after this, it is Wendy Adelson's turn, but before we see the entrance of John Lauro, who was Wendy Adelson's attorney, and he makes it clear to Judge Stephen Everett that she's appearing only because of a state subpoena, and he wanted to ensure that this derivative use immunity applies to a cross-examination by the defense of Wendy Adelson, to which Judge Stephen Everett says it does. But then Judge Stephen Everett went on to say that the defense is hoping to question Wendy beyond the scope of the state with a proffer. So essentially, Judge Stephen Everett said, look, let's get through the direct examination by Georgia Kaplan of Wendy Adelson. Let's get through all of that. Let's get through the cross, and then we'll deal with the proffer afterwards. And it appears that that is how they left it. Again, we're coming to you live from Tallahassee. We're in the hallway here where courtroom 3G is, just down the hall behind my right shoulder. Then the star witness of the day, of course, Wendy Adelson, coming out in a blue dress. I believe it was different, although there was some questions at the end amongst people in the gallery saying it looks similar to the first two trials. I don't think it is the same dress. I think it is different, but it is a blue dress. I could see her fixing her hair and kind of getting herself ready off camera before the jurors came in. What was noticeable and interesting inside the courtroom, the jurors were on a bathroom break. Donna went on a bathroom break. So Wendy was literally, and Harvey left. And so Wendy was literally left in the courtroom alone. However, when everyone returned and Donna was back from her bathroom break, she literally turned, Wendy did, literally turned her chair in that witness box and angled it toward the jury box, which is away from Donna Adelson, literally to look away from her mother. And it was interesting. It was sad. It was disturbing. It was, I guess, like a commentary in essence on this, as Tim calls it, this Shakespearean tragedy that is this family. Now, literally, the daughter is shunning the mother, both in court, but physically by turning away from her. Wendy made it a point to kind of stare down the jurors as they came in. I would say in more of a seductive type manner than, a typical staring down. But you always hear, the Wendy spell and the doe eyes. And just, she was really looking at them. There are 8 men on this jury, but they weren't having it. They were all business. They came in and took their seats. Right away, she admits that she's living outside the state of Florida. Georgia then makes it known that she is under an immunity pact here with the government. She starts to talk about how she met Danny online back in 2003, gets married in 2006, moved to Tallahassee in 2005, moves back to Miami 2006 and 7, moves back to Tallahassee 2007 to 2014. He talks about the age of the boys at the time of the murder, that they were 4 years old and almost turning 5 and 3.5. And Wendy explains that the boys are only 14 months apart. She talks about how they get separated in the fall of 2012, that Danny was upset when the separation happened. So they're going through all the different kind of timelines related to their marriage. And she says, unlike Donna Adelson's description of Dan Markel, she says, no, I did not think he was a religious zealot, but he used religion to control me. It's always about the Adelsons, narcissism and their own focus. So she said he was just using religion to control her. And she then talks about this issue of kosher food and keeping kosher. And she says it was more important for Danny to keep kosher than for me. And she gave an example. We used to eat bacon, but bacon became a no-no in our family. She says we're both raised Jewish. Keep that in mind when you hear later on that Donna wanted the grandchildren in Nazi Hitler youth uniforms. I mean, it's crazy. So she is asked about moving out while Dan is away on a business trip. She moves into 3303 Aqua Ridge Way in Tallahassee. She said at that point it was somewhat cordial and they were trying to figure out a way to make it work, that they did not yet have a full custody agreement. And then bam, I mean, one of the most effective things here are the demonstratives. They did this during Jason Nulan's testimony, and then during Wendy's testimony, they just start pulling up graphics, the dissolution of marriage. Georgia says, was your mom active in working on the divorce? She says, no. And then Georgia says she wasn't editing legal docs. And then she says she was probably giving notes. Was it a contentious divorce? Yes, it was. Why do you want to move to South Florida? She said she couldn't hold steady employment in South Florida, so in North Florida. So therefore, she wanted to move to South Florida. She said that she realized with Dan Markel they'd have to move a lot because eventually he wanted to be a professor at Harvard and Yale. And then Georgia quickly pivots back, and she's casting Tallahassee is an awful place to the jurors, which is brilliant. She says to Wendy, did you discuss being stuck in Tallahassee? Wendy tried to wiggle her way out of that by saying, I may have, but I had a nice quality of life here. The jurors did not like hearing that, being stuck in Tallahassee, because this is their chosen hometown. Wendy is then asked to point out her mother. She points to Donna. She says she's the woman with the headphones. And then Georgia says, Donna said that you were, and she uses the word hostage and prisoner in Tallahassee. And again, what can I do? I'm sitting there as an observer in the courtroom. I'm looking at these jurors. They're not happy. Who wants their hometown to be described, living here as being described as one being a hostage and a prisoner in this town? But that's the way Donna was describing it. And again, the jurors were not pleased about this. She was then asked to point out her father, Harvey Adelson, who is sitting in the front row on the defense side of the gallery. Harvey, again, looking upset. It was noticeable that Wendy was sort of less giggly and a little, or maybe a lot less antagonistic than she has been. Almost like she's realizing the seriousness and the weight of this and how much evidence the government has. And now she's playing along. This is my own interpretation, by the way. Like now she's playing along instead of trying to be combative against Georgia Cappleman, almost like a surrender to some degree. And we're going to talk about this obviously on the show tonight. Again, Donna writes to her, you do not have to be a prisoner in Tallahassee. And when we're hearing this, we're seeing the emails, which is so powerful.
Joel, I'm hopping on here. Was there any moment that you saw a juror react to anything? I mean, obviously you're able to see everyone's reaction. We can't.
Yeah.
you see the
Yeah,
test.
I mean, sure. And if I'm going into too much detail and too much recap, please help guide me, COE. I'm sitting
Yep.
here hunched over with a broken tripod in the hallway. Not that I'm complaining, but I'm complaining.
Yeah.
So,
4,500 of us here in the chat. We just watched all of the testimony, but what we can't see is the jurors reacting.
yeah, so when that email came up, the now infamous email about the Hitler Youth uniforms, um, one juror in particular, front row, second from the gallery, his jaw literally dropped open, and he just locked eyes with Donna and did not let go. I mean, he was incredulous. Um, I hate to kind of stereotype anyone in terms of looks. You just don't know who's who. With that caveat, I'll say he strikes me as possibly being Jewish. I don't know his religion, but that one juror seemed really, really upset about it. I got to say, I wrote this in the chat too. This looks to me like a professional jury almost. This is like if there was such a thing as professional jurors who took notes, paid attention, and came to work in that jury box ready to go and attentive, it would be this group of 14 jurors. I mean, they're as serious as you can imagine. And they've kind of got poker faces, but at moments like the one with the Nazi youth uniforms, this guy just could not believe what he was seeing. Now, the two other jurors that are really interesting to me is the irrigation technician, sprinkler man, as I call him, who is a former military guy for 20 years, and then his friend who sits next to him, and I call him Mountain Man because he's got long hair and a ponytail pulled back. Those guys are as serious can be. Seem like very honest, hardworking guys, and they are following this. I mean, it's like like a tennis. The U.S. Open started last night, and it's like a U.S. Open tennis match. So they're watching Georgia, Wendy, Georgia, Wendy. I mean, heads going back and forth. So a very attentive and intense set of jurors here who are listening to absolutely everything.
Joel,
The other thing, yeah,
there was
real quick. The other thing was, for the first time ever, we heard an explanation of gibbers. She said Wendy was a name we used to make them less scary, but then she tied it into, you saw a Jewish cover, a Jewish translation of the book, Puss in Boots, and she tried to get Georgia did to try the origin of the nickname to something. I'm sorry, that Wendy was trying to tie it into something kind of silly to make it seem like Dan was less scary, but it had some kind of anti-Semitic undertone. So that was weird, and jurors kind of picked up on that. We're like, what is going on here?
Joel, I was going to ask you, there was an image. We're not able to see all of the graphic. I mean, we see most of the graphics, but we couldn't see the images. There was one image of Charlie and Katie McVanawa that they referenced, but we didn't see. Do you remember what that was?
I don't, and I don't think I saw that either. It's not easy to see all the images because the monitor that we're in front of actually keeps going down. I mean, all the jurors have monitors that are working in front of them, and then there's a monitor in front of Harvey on the other side for the gallery. But the monitor that the Markells look at and that we look at on our side was going in and out, and I think it was out at that time. But one of the things I noticed in the chat and I noticed people talking about in the gallery was just every single time Wendy didn't recall something or her memory got fuzzy, George, it was like tab such and such on page such and such. And so, like, tab became the word of the day today. And I mean, Georgia was just able to bring the so called receipts and nail her every single time.
And Joel, I'm going to pop this photo up. This is actually a screenshot that I took off of our feed. And this was the moment when Wendy had to look at Donna and say, yes, this was her mom. Talk to us about that moment and how jurors were reacting to that very moment.
Yeah, I think the jurors at this particular moment just saw that there was a connection and could see that there is a fractured family here. I think they picked up on it right away because, again, I think I was mentioning as the jurors came in for this testimony, Wendy literally lifted her chair, or I don't know if she lifted it, but she was able to completely turn it from sort of facing the judge's bench, the other direction towards the gallery, literally to turn away from her mother. And she was making absolutely no eye contact. And it was, um it's like an uncomfortable moment. It's those moments where I'm in the supermarket and I see a husband and a wife fighting, and I sort of actually relish that because I'm like, I'm not the only one getting yelled at. But those uncomfortable moments where you catch personal stuff in action and everyone around them is made to feel uncomfortable. Well, that's what it was like when Wendy turned her chair on Donna, and there was no way to interpret it any other way. It was tough to gauge Donna's reaction. Donna just seems so, I don't know, lost in what's happening right now. And by lost, I mean so involved and just trying to stay afloat and tread water, that I don't even know how much attention she gave to the fact that her daughter turned away from her. And again, Harvey is so hard to read. Harvey, and I don't mean this in a cruel way at all, but almost like he's not exactly sure even where he is or why he's here. And listen, he's obviously a very intelligent guy. The guy was a very successful dentist, but he's in his early 80s, and I think there's some confusion for him as to what's going on at all times. But at that particular moment, I don't think any of this was lost on the jurors. One other reaction or series of reactions that the jurors had was when Donna had these sort of tough words for Danny, calling him, and I quote here, a piece of shit, an asshole, a narcissist, a bully. The jurors sat up and they were like, wow, this is, Grandma Dearest here. I mean, this is a horrible woman. But again, keep in mind, I'm sure some of these jurors, either they or their families, have been connected to a very contentious divorce. The question is, was it so contentious that Donna took it to the next step to be the mastermind in this murder, or was she just a crazy grandmother? But I think there's enough evidence coming their way that they're going to be able to make the decision that it was probably the former, which is a mastermind.
And Joel, we're going to let you leave in 1 minute, but before you go to take a quick lunch break, we're getting a few quick shots of Ruth and of Phil. Obviously, this is what this trial is all about. It's about justice for Dan Markel, and Ruth and Phil once again have to relive everything and go through all of it for each trial. What are they like? How are they doing? Obviously, I assume every day is very tough.
Yeah, by the way, COE, I don't want to embarrass you, but I love you. You're doing a fantastic job. You're holding up the family. Kids are having a rough time at school. Some woman yelled at me in the chat that I'm not being kind enough because I get yelled at for that. And I just want you to know that you're doing a great job. And by the way, this is going to be a new lunch live. You're going to come on like this and ask me the questions, because otherwise I'm just regurgitating, which is, what a lot of you guys saw. So these questions helped me a ton. So let's plan on doing this moving forward. But what was that question? Because I already forgot it.
The question was about the Markels. Obviously, Phil and Ruth have been here before. They've seen all of this, but I assume it does not get easier. And in fact, maybe it gets harder every time because you have to relive it and it's more and more tense, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, one of the saving graces for the Markels is that they've got so many people supporting them here that, every night, Phil and I, since he's gotten here, we're supposed to have a drink on the back patio, but he has a dinner every night. He has one tonight, but he came up to me right at the lunch break and said, all right, let's try to do it tonight. Phil's just a phenomenal guy. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He's just an amazing human being. How he's able to do this trial after trial, I don't know. I think it's tougher on Shelley and Ruth, at least like from an exterior look at it. It looks like it's physically tougher on Ruth and Shelley, but I know internally it really hurts Phil. But yeah, it's tough on them. And look, these demonstratives, these exhibits that are coming up on the screen are very powerful, but who wants to see your son being called a piece of shit or an asshole or he has to look up and see these words and a reminder of what a horrible family his son was married to. And that's got to dredge up all kinds of awful memories. So I know they're having a hard time, but they've got their best face on. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but Donna seems much more even keeled today. And I don't know if that's with the help of something helping to keep her even keel. But after being reprimanded by the judge, I'm sure her attorneys either spoke to her, gave her something of a combination of the two. But she's kind of just sitting there going along for the ride right now.
All right, I think that's good. Why don't we wrap this so you can go eat? I think you've got 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes.
That's very kind of you, COE. I appreciate it. I will have my 93 calories for the day. And I have no idea why our tripod stopped working, but if you could see the scoliosis forming on my back right now, I'm hunched over, twisted, and holding on to this window, and everyone behind me must think I'm an absolute lunatic.
All right, well, that's pretty on brand for you. All right, Joel, say goodbye, and I'll take us out of here.
Love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel, of course.